Crawling back to you. Ever thought of calling when you've had a few? 'Cause I know I do. Dundee United at Ibrox, August 1986. That's the closest I can get. That's the one that keeps coming back to me. Dundee United were 2-0 up at half time and they beat us 3-2. They scored 3 goals without reply. I think it was Graham Souness's third league game in charge in his first full season as Rangers player manager. Now, it wasn't his third league game in charge or whatever the number was. I think it's number 3. We lost to Easter Road, obviously, in his first game in charge in the 86-87 season, his first time playing for us in a competitive match. For Rangers, he gets sent off at Easter Road and everybody else in the park except Alan Rough was booked. And I think we had a wee kind of unremarkable midweek 1-0 win or something over Falkirk. And then we played Dundee United in this heady, sunny Saturday full of so much hope. And we're 2-0 up, and this is what it's supposed to be like. This is what it felt like last Sunday. It wasn't so much eviscerating, it's kind of drying you out because you're in the flow. It felt so liquid. It was liquid football, as Alan Partridge would say. It was liquid blue. It was just flowing so beautifully last Sunday. I've been exploring the dark recesses of my mind, something I'm not too keen to do because it's quite difficult to locate my brain in the first place, but I've been finding, what did it feel like as an equivalent game? And there must be there's plenty of games that have been far worse. Celtic beating us 5-1 at Ibrox. Maybe that will happen again tomorrow, who knows? In our first season back in the top flight. Plenty of games that have been absolutely horrible and gutting for all sorts of different reasons, but the way that one happened, when we're 2-0 up and everything just seems to be falling into place and you're waiting for it to fall into place, it looked, it sounded and it felt like where we're supposed to be, the point we're supposed to get to under Danny Röhl, yeah, but the point we've been trying to get to under so many other managers. We got there under Steven Gerrard, but that happened in a season when none of us were in the stadium. So this was the point that we've really been waiting for since we were in the lower leagues. That's what it felt like last Sunday, and blowing away Celtic is always going to be a kind of marquee moment in any season where Rangers are doing what Rangers are supposed to do, and it was just suddenly, oh no, it's not happened. Now, we haven't materially lost anything except 2 league points. We can make that up. But it was just the thought of, it's going to have to be started again. We're going to have to just brush this off and start again and get back to that same point where we're at half time, and then, take it for the whole game this time. Take it forward to the end of the game this time, and it's going to be so much harder to do having once lost it. And that's all I could come up with was this game against Dundee United. As soon as arrived, his first league game in charge of us, I think directly in charge of us, was against Motherwell on the last day of the 85-86 season, when Hearts started that day top of the table. Hearts started that day top of the league. They'd have to lose to Dundee at Dens Park, and Celtic would have to win by, I think it was at least 5 goals against St Mirren at Love Street for the title to go anywhere other than Tynecastle. They hadn't won it for 26 whole years at that point in time. And I just watched a bit of Mansfield against Arsenal there on TNT in the FA Cup, and I noticed the Albert Kidd hairstyle, the Albert Kidd look is coming back. A couple of the Mansfield players, and I've seen this, I think it's Aberdeen players, it's the kids, the trendies, the young guys, they've still got hair. They get the kind of mullet with a bit of the perm at the back. Touch of the Chrissy Waddles. I had the Chrissy Waddle 40 years ago. The mullet at the back, a wee perm in it. The Mousers as well. A couple of guys actually look like Albert Kidd. And I'm thinking, my God, Hearts supporters must be watching this. Hearts supporters of my age must be watching this new trend amongst young footballers these days and thinking, oh no, he's coming back. Albert Kidd's coming back. Souness himself from Edinburgh, of course, and he arrived the previous season, 85-86, he became our official player manager, became our manager the day after we had lost 2-0 at home to Tottenham in a friendly. It was a Sunday friendly because it was a Scottish Cup semi-final weekend and we weren't in the Scottish Cup because Hearts had put us out at Tynecastle. Was it that? I was at all these games. I was at the game at Tynecastle where Hearts put us at the Scottish Cup in 85-86. We're blowing everybody away and they would lose the Scottish Cup final to Aberdeen. The week after, they'd thrown away that league title, and we're playing Tottenham in a friendly. And it's the first time I'd ever seen Spurs. They beat us 2-0, but it was already underway. The moves were already underway. Next day, Jock Wallace is sacked, and it's announced that Graham Souness is arriving as our new player manager. He does a few media photo opportunities down the tunnel next to the old blue tin kind of bomb shelter looking dugouts we used to have either side of the tunnel, and he's got the red and black socks on with the C.R. Smith blue shirt and that, just iconic photographs. But he goes back to Sampdoria because he's got to complete his playing in Serie A for Sampdoria when Serie A was the league to be playing in, and he goes back there to complete the rest of his contract at Sampdoria. So although he's technically our manager, it's Walter Smith that comes in, his assistant. He'd agreed to be his assistant, and he comes in and he takes charge of us. Walter Smith took charge of Rangers for the first time as kind of caretaker assistant manager, if you like, at Love Street. And then he took charge of us outright, and we get beat 2-1. I was at that game. And he takes charge of us outright. His first game in charge of Rangers as officially our manager in his own right is against St Mirren at Love Street. Sandy Robertson scores. I'm maybe trying to get myself into the right mood for this game tomorrow by talking about all these happy memories. But Graham Souness, he came in for the Motherwell game. It was our last. He actually arrived in Glasgow and takes charge of the team itself. A game against Motherwell at Ibrox on the last day of the 85-86 season, and Dundee had a chance, I think, to qualify for the UEFA Cup if we get beat, and we had to beat Motherwell that day to ensure that we got into the UEFA Cup the following season, to ensure that we get into Europe. And I remember Souness and Walter Smith coming out onto the park and applauding the crowd in the centre circle before the game kicked off. We won the game kind of routinely, but the news was all coming in. This is in Spurs, who Jock Wallace was in charge his last time. The last game Rangers played without Graham Souness as manager, officially as manager, was Spurs, which was where Graham Souness started his career in professional football. And this game against Motherwell, we win that, that's fine, but the news is coming through. The news is coming through that Hearts are making a mess of it, and Celtic are doing the business against St Mirren. It was all on the radio in those days, the transistor radios that folk used to take to the football with them. And in the second half, we knew Hearts were losing 1-0 in the second half. Late on in the second half, I mean, you Celtic were pounding St Mirren and they were going top of the league. Celtic, we're so well out of it that our only interest is ensuring that Celtic don't win the league. It may yet end up being the case this season, but the news come through that Kidd had scored, and Walter Kidd was a famous Hearts player at the time. And there was a little rush of excitement that the place started celebrating. I remember jumping down into the concourse. I was sitting in front of the Govan, and I jumped down into the concourse. Yes, that's a sickener for Celtic. It was Albert Kidd getting a set. We didn't know who'd been scoring the goal. Scored the first goal. Albert Kidd is getting a second goal for Dundee. No, it's over. It's over. Celtic have won the league, and I had to get the train back to Ardross, and I was still staying. Ardross was only 16 at the time, so I was still staying in Ardross, and the train from Glasgow to Ardross. First stop, Paisley Gilmer Street, and it was a wash. A sea of green and white, as it will be tomorrow. But the start of the following season, we get beat at Easter Roads, obscure win against Falkirk, and then we had this big day Saturday 3 o'clock kick-off. And I remember I was up the back of the Brimlin. I hadn't yet done the thing of getting a season ticket because for so many years at Ibrox, the crowds had been absolutely paltry. There was no hope, nothing was going to happen, and here it was, a revolution was starting. So the place was sold out. And I remember I'm up the back of the Brimlin and I'm looking through the gates between the Copland and the main stand. I'm looking right across the park diagonally, and I can see those people climbing the lampposts and climbing up the gates, the blue gates at the other side of Ibrox to see it. It was old school. You know, I was expecting cloth caps and stuff like that to be. It was phenomenal. And we're 2-0 up. Did Ali McCoy get both of the goals? I can't really remember, but we're going crazy. And of course, they scored both the goals into the Brimlin, because I was in the away end, and we shoot normally towards the Brimlin first half. Second half, Dundee United, who would reach a European final that season, were a pretty good team, had been champions of Scotland more recently than Rangers. They'd been champions of Scotland just like 3 and a bit years earlier. They came out and just took us to pieces. Jim McLean's Dundee United. Second half, 2-1, 2 each, 3-2, and Ian Redford scored the second. And I can't remember now, Ian Redford, who was from Perth and played for Dundee, got to the point where we signed him from Dundee. Didn't even really want to join Rangers. It was his dad that was Rangers daft and almost made him join Rangers. I think he would rather have gone down south. he had plenty of options and missed the penalty in the first match of the 1981 League Cup final right at the end. Turns out he'd problems with his hearing. He was deaf in one ear and had been undiagnosed and things like that. Ian Redford, really a terrible time of it, and a phenomenal footballer. And he battered in the winner to make it 3-2. And I get confused now whether I heard him screaming in cathartic vindication as he stood in the back of the net, following the ball into the back of the net and just screaming through the net and into the Brimland Road, the Rangers fans at the front of the Brimland Road stand, or if I only picked it up off the microphones on Scott Sport watching the highlights the next day. But that's as close as I could find to the feeling of what happened last Sunday against Celtic. It's happening, this revolution, this new momentum that we're aiming for. Everything's in place, it's happening. Oh no, it really isn't. It's not as good as I thought it was. Shit, we actually get beaten that day. And everything eventually ended up being fine in that first season under Graham Souness. Going back to the previous season, that game against Motherwell, where I remember Dundee still had a chance of qualifying for Europe because there was stuff in the papers and the fallout after Dundee had denied Hearts, or Hearts had denied themselves the league title in the most agonising fashion. There was a fallout in the newspapers. I think it was the Dundee chairman or vice chairman, chief executive, somebody in the Dundee director's box was accused of having celebrated far too energetically amid all this Hearts tragedy. He was going absolutely crazy, and he made out, I got a wrong score. I thought that Motherwell were beating Rangers, and this meant we had a chance. I think Dundee were up and we had a chance of claiming the last UEFA Cup spot, the last European spot in the league. Ian Gillespie. I think this was nonsense. He was just getting it right up. You should be entitled. Somebody comes to your place to have a party, you should be entitled to get right in their face and enjoy it if you beat them. But that was one of the accusations. But the following Friday, it was 6 days later, we played Celtic in the Glasgow Cup final when it was still mostly first teams and it was 40,000 at Ibrox for this game. On the Friday night, Celtic had just won the league and they turned up at Ibrox, selling out the Celtic end and the Brimland Road stand, and they'd be in the West Enclosure as well, no doubt. And we beat them 3-2. Super Ali doing the business. I think it was Bob Latchford that was in goals, or Peter Latchford, sorry. Bob was his fantastic goal scoring brother. They played for Everton, but it was a great night, and it was a first kind of, there you go. You've got to get a marker in there. You've got to do something just to put them off their usual strides, and we did it that night, and we reaped the benefits of it the following season. Nach dem Spiel ist vor dem Spiel. Nach dem Spiel ist vor dem Spiel. Now that's Sepp Herberger. I don't know how only go to Germany for a week every couple of years on holiday, but I don't know if he's still the most famous manager in German history, most famous football manager in German history. But he had all these little aphorisms, not like Bill Shankly. It's not a matter of life and death, it's more important than that. Or Brian Clough do this whole thing about I'm not saying I'm the best manager in the game, but I'm definitely in the top one. All that kind of stuff. And there's Sepp Herberger, I know that the ball is round, just keep going. The football kind of goes and comes back. It's swings and roundabouts sort of thing. But one of his famous aphorisms, the manager who won Germany the first ever World Cup, 1954, against all the odds, against the Hungarians. These little aphorisms, as I say, that I was only following orders, things like that. He, nach dem Spiel ist vor dem Spiel, after the game is before the game. After the game is before the game, and that's more appropriate than ever, not just because we've got a German manager, and hopefully we've got a German strike partner for Youssef Snapshot up front into this game tomorrow against Celtic, but the team we played last week's the team we're playing this Sunday. It definitely is a case of before. It's really difficult. I did a pod on Thursday nights, debriefing, trying to get what happened last Sunday out of the system, but of course that's actually part of the preview for what's going to happen this Sunday. It's really affected by that, and it's more appropriate than ever than that after the game is before the game. Sepp Herberger, I think he was managing a football team during the war and stuff like that. He was the manager at Eintracht Frankfurt at one point. That's a team we've played in a European final. We've played 5 European finals. We've played a couple of European finals and a quarter final and a couple of last 16 matches in Europe since Martin O'Neill, back in 2004, since the last time Celtic won a knockout match in European competition. That's why we are simply the best, because Europe's where it counts. Europe's where it counts, so that's why we are simply the best. And Eintracht Frankfurt, Sepp Herberger, the immortal Sepp Herberger from the chessboard city of Mannheim in Germany there. He played for both the big Mannheim teams, Waldorf Mannheim and is it VF? He played for both the big Mannheim teams, and amazingly, Sepp Herberger died a few weeks after I attended my first ever football match, my first ever senior football. I went to see Winton Rovers at some point, I think even earlier than 1977, but I went to my first senior game, my first Rangers game, first time I went to Ibrox, 2nd of April 1977, and Sepp Herberger died in April 1977, just towards the end of the month, 20-odd of April 77, and then when I went to my one and only World Cup finals match, the only time I've ever been to a match at the World Cup finals, was the opening game of the 2006 World Cup in Germany, in Munich, in Bayern, in München, and it was the hosts, Deutschland, the old Deutschland Fußballbundemannschaft. They were playing Costa Rica, so a bit of a personal investment in that game as well. And I got the tickets at the last minute, and I had to quickly get myself over there. And I flew into the Presswick to Frankfurt. That is the Presswick is to Glasgow, the one that's miles away from Frankfurt. Frankfurt Hahn, is it Frankfurt Hahn? And it's about a 2-hour bus journey, and it's full of England fans who are going to Frankfurt for England's first game, I think, against Paraguay. So I just kind of kept my mouth shut, and I had to get the train, an overnight train, catching a train from Switzerland. I was going to Switzerland. No. Aye, the first train I was getting was going to Switzerland. It was going to Bern, which is where Sepp Herberger won the first ever World Cup. Das Wunder von Bern, the miracle of Bern, they call it, because they beat the Hungarians, who only lost one match in 6 years, and that match was that World Cup final in which Hungary were 2-0 up after like 6-8 minutes, and then the Germans beat them 3-2. And it was going to Bern, this train. That was getting the first train, but to change and then get another train into Munich itself, which get in at like 7 in the morning on the day of the opening game of the 2006 World Cup, and it changed at Mannheim. I'm getting a train to Bern, and then it changes at Mannheim, which is the birthplace, the chessboard city of Mannheim, where Sepp Herberger was born. So apart from it, I got the only tattoo I've got is the Deutscher Fußballbund badge there, their crest, and this happens. It's just meant to be. We've got a German manager. He's going. Finally, it's happened for me. We've got the German in charge. It's written in the stars. Everything's going to be absolutely fine. But nach dem Spiel is vor dem Spiel. After the game is before the game, and that's been the feel this week as we go into what's happening. Big Youssef, our Youssef there with his phenomenal goal and his sitting in a bucket style celebration after it. It put a wee tingle into our Wally, your Wally, and Abdi's Wally. But I think, is it Nico Raskin that says to him after he celebrates the first goal he scored last Sunday, that overhead kick? Just getting, I'm talking, it's nach dem Spiel, it's vor dem Spiel. We can't help talking about last week's game, and we're talking about this week's game, and that goal will live with us forever. And what we do tomorrow can help preserve it in the most positive light possible. Have you tried putting Chermiti into your phone this week? You're talking to your mates, just sending your mates a wee text message. I hope Big Chermiti, or the Cherminator, I hope the Cherminator, no, because I'm impersonating working class people doing banter here. You know, that sort of thing. That Kevin Bridges thing about the banter, Callum Douglas, and that's so fucking spot on. It's unbelievable. I saw Kevin Bridges before he was that millions of folk will tell you this, but I saw him in the what do you call it? The comedy, the one that's in the West End, the one that's just in Woodlands Road. Yeah, I saw him. There's one in Edinburgh as well. I saw him in there. He was absolutely sensational. Young Kevin Bridges, and he's a guy who's a Celtic fan. A famous picture of him does the rounds all the time. Anytime a Rangers fan dares say Kevin Bridges is pretty fucking funny, there's always that picture of him. But look at that. He's wearing a Celtic top and he's got a scarf that says "Fuck the Rangers," and he's in the Broomlin Road stand. You know, at Ibrox. I'm saying fuck the Celtic plenty of times. That's what we do. We're born into it. There's no lot of imagination put in place when you're picking your football team. So that's Kevin Bridges. He's in the Celtic end. A Celtic supporter in the Broomlin Road stand. There's got to be 7,500 of them there tomorrow. That's the big talking point, isn't it? Well, we'll soon find out whether that's going to be a big talking point or not. But if you put it into your phone, you're texting your mates, I hope Big Chermiti's Chermiti, particularly if you try to do it in all caps, the predictive text now comes up with Chermiti exclamation mark. It's just endless eyes, a T, more endless eyes, an exclamation mark. Must be so many people Maybe it's just my phone. I don't remember texting that at any point last week. Jeremy, I wasn't on my phone when I'm one of those folks vibing in the moment at Ibrox. I take some photographs before the game, sometimes maybe after the game, but never during the game. I never get the phone out during the game. But so I don't think it was me texting that at any point. It must be the algorithm. Must be just there's so many folk all over the country. Last Sunday, just Jeremy T. He's changed the predictive. It was such an amazing goal that he's changed the predictive text in your phone. You get that thing. It was a draw last week. It was a draw, and I split it down into 48.5 minutes dominated by Rangers and 48.5 minutes dominated by Celtic. And it wasn't because we dominated injury time, which is I think the only thing preventing Celtic having won the game last week, a la Ian Redford screaming in our faces back in August 1986. But they do that thing, don't they, commentators, if it'd been when they're trying to separate two teams, particularly if one of the teams is playing on the counter-attack, and that's it happened at various points during the game last week, but basically we controlled the first 50 minutes. As our head coach keeps saying, Celtic controlled the game thereafter. But you do that thing where they say, if it'd been a boxing match, they'd have won it on points. They'd have been a points decision if it'd been a boxing match. If one team's deliberately sitting in, parking the bus, so to speak, and the other one seems to be playing the football, but it ends up a draw anyway. If it'd been a boxing match, not the one that had the ball for 75% possession in the game, they'd have won it on points. But that's not what we wanted last week. We didn't want it decided like a boxing match. We wanted it decided like figure skating. We wanted to get any artistic interpretation. Celtic's goals, their two goals were unbelievably mundane. Not a bad build-up to the first goal, to Kieran Tierney's goal. Technically perfect. We were giving them a major helping hand when it came to it. But the penalty, they nearly made a complete... In fact, they made an arse of it twice. We made an even bigger arse of defending, helping Jack Butland when it came to defending that goal. But the goals we scored, two Trinities, both just the finishes themselves, apart from anything else, were sublime. Youssef Snapshot, just before he's sitting in that bucket, like, I don't know, like he's just put itching powder in PC Murdoch's helmet, and got away with it. And PC Murdoch doesn't know what the hell has happened. That his ma's gave him money to go to the shops to get some sweeties because there was a mouse. There was a wee mouse. There was a mouse loose about the house, and she found it in the bathroom, and she's like, "Oh my God, Wally, get rid of that!" And he's went in there and he's picked it up and he's got rid of it, and she's like, "Oh, thanks, son," and gave him money to go. But she didn't actually realise it's Wally's mouse. He's actually got the mouse. He found it and he had it in his bedroom. He was keeping it his pet, and the whole previous panels has all been about how he's lost his mouse and he can't find it. But his mom thinks it's just a random mouse that's in the house, and she rewards him. And he's just sitting there. Wasn't it big Youssef last week on his bucket? Looking so chuffed with himself, like he's just done something really fly, and he was basking in the glory. And no wonder, because it was for artistic interpretation. That's what we want. We want Torval and Dean, we want Ravel's Bolero, we want Sarajevo 1984. We don't want Sarajevo 1984 back because everything that happened thereafter, but we certainly want Sarajevo back. That's how we wanted to be judged last week. It would have been 18 sixes to nothing for us against Celtic last week if it was a bit artistic interpretation. He's 8'3" tall, Youssef Snapshot. Now, we've seen Stevie Davis. Stevie D, MBE, he has scored an overhead kick against Celtic into the Celtic end in the Scottish Cup at Ibrox. Quite appropriately, the last time we played Celtic in the Scottish Cup at Ibrox. But Stevie D is, apart from being like a god of football, physically he's quite diminutive, and that's part of his strength as well. That's part of his strength. But when he does an overhead kick, it looks like there's not a lot to flip up and down. There's not a lot to burrow in the air. Whereas the big man, and there's a clue in what I'm calling him there, the big man, he's 8'3", was 8'7", I can't think, 8'4.5" tall he is. And when that ball comes in from Skov Olsen, who did really well to make a bit of space to get the ball across, thoughts of dropping him tomorrow, are you fucking mental? He's in the team, Skov Olsen. He puts the ball in. Youssef spins on his own axis. And you get players with great pivots in Rangers history, Barry Fergus against Bayer Leverkusen and stuff like that. They're just pivoting the play with the ball on the deck and just turning, doing a 180 or whatever. This was him pivoting mid-air on his waistline, which is already like 5 feet in the air, Youssef Snapshot's waistline. And turning himself round, that's a lot of body. I know he's really skinny. I know he's a young guy and he's super fit and all that, but that's a hell of a lot of body to get through the air. And the great thing, I was talking during the week there on Thursday in my debrief pod about how I wasn't at the Scotland game to see Scott McTominay scoring that goal, and that really pissed me off. But I'm less pissed off about it now because I've got to see exactly a goal, if anything, even better of the same style live. I was certainly live, and it's a great thing when you're at a game to see a goal like that, just to be there in the moment, to be able to tell people for years to come, I was at that game, and you're breathing the same air as it. But what you forget until you see it, and when I think back on what I saw it from my point of view, and it's easy to forget how you saw it at the time because you've watched so many TV replays of it subsequently, and it's all over your phone as well. Rangers TV are putting it out there every day of the week. TV cameras, any cameras, it's always slower. It is always slower. You don't appreciate how fast that happened until you see it in the flesh, and that's what I remember. That's my abiding memory, and it always will be, of that goal in that game, is the way Youssef Snapshot spun himself so quickly. That whole attack where we just mobbed Celtic, dispossessed them, launched the ball up towards them, and bullied them and won the ball back off them and shifted it round about their box. It looks great on the telly. It looked even better in the flesh because you get to see exactly how. Sometimes you watch stuff in the telly, the fitba in the telly, you're thinking, when I was younger and fit, I could probably have done that. I think I could have done that. It's only when you see it in the flesh and you realise, they used to have these cameras, Serie A coverage in the kind of late 90s. Used to have those track cameras that would go down the byline basically, and they would move along it exactly. You'd get this shot of players like Edgar Davids or somebody kind of having a couple of one touches and bombing up the wing and putting a few tackles. I know Edgar Davids wasn't a winger as such, but that kind of stuff. For Inter or Juventus or something, you just, what the look at the speed they guys are moving, because it was keeping actual track with them from that angle. Looking at it from above, and it must be the way the cameras work, you can judge comparatively the speed through television. I remember you'd watch the Junior Cup final. When I was a kid, you watched the Junior Cup final, and you could see they're playing the games at Hampden as well, which made it a starker comparison. They're playing at a stadium you're used to seeing on the television, dimensions of a pitch that you're used to seeing, and you would see, why are these guys moving so slowly? Why are Rangers moving so slowly against Celtic? It's Irvine Meadow against St Anthony's son. It wasn't Irvine Meadow never played the. I think the Ants have won the Junior Cup, but no, at the time it was on the television. But you just notice straight away this is really slow compared to what I'm normally used to seeing on the telly in direct comparison. But at the game, and I'm just so thankful, no matter what else happens in this double header, I'm so thankful to have been there and seen that first goal from you. His second finish, the hipster's finish, was every bit as good technically. But the speed of it, we're shifting that ball right round that box. Celtic can't get anywhere, but we're still managing to be pinpoint and precise. The way Roman's built, it's Youssef Snapshot that starts the move. He gets in there making the tackle, I think, that dispossesses Celtic. And he shifts it to Romans, and Romans just hammers it. So that between about 15 Celtic players, right to the feet of Mikey Moore, who knows just to let it run, to shift it round again. Is it Raskin? And he shifts it to Dujon Sterling, who was a lovely little slip ball into Skov Olsen, who just stands up his man, takes him to the byline, puts it across. And honestly, from where I was in the main stand up towards the Copeland, the speed at which Chermiti barrels himself round, the speed at which that ball came across, the speed of the whole move, it's sensational. It's absolutely sensational. And I am thankful, finally, that I've got an example of a Rangers player scoring for Rangers that I can use in this boring. What you've just listened to, everything I say is boring, obviously. If you've got this far, you deserve a medal into this podcast. But I always go on about this, how it's so much faster in the flesh. And the only two examples I can ever come up with, and I've only had one initially, I've only had one for about 20 years, and that was Celtic, Brian McClair scoring against us in the 1986-87 League Cup final. We beat them 2-1. It was a 1-2 with Maurice Johnson, of all people. And it was Brian McClair, 1-2 with Mo Johnson. He fires it into the top corner up at the Celtic end. And it's one of the fastest things I've ever seen in my life. And I watched it in the telly. Obviously, I watched the game endlessly after that. I was only like kind of 16, 17 at the time, so it meant the world to me. It still means the world to me, that game. But it was never the same. It didn't look just quite as fast. And the television definitely slows it down a bit. And then the other example I come up with was watching Messi. I was over at the game. We played Barcelona in the Champions League. And Lionel Messi, they beat us 2-0. We drew 0-0 at Ibrox, of course, 2007, 2008, and we go over to the new camp. Hardly got a touch of the ball, and it was great just to only lose 2-0. Watching Rangers playing in all white in the new camp was quite a thing, but everybody wears all white. It's actually one of the few away kits that don't clash with anything on the Barcelona kit. But seeing Messi scoring that night, it's like somebody in fast forward. I was just straight away, I'm like, fucking speed of that guy, apart from anything else. And obviously you see the speed of him on television, but it's the way he just has the ball stuck to his feet. Charlie Charles, the kind of Velcro ball stuck to his feet. But to see it in real life, to see it in the flesh, it's different altogether. It's almost kind of supernatural looking. It looked like somebody had pressed fast forward on him and nobody else. He's moving at a different speed. He's getting moved along. There's no way of keeping up with this guy. Different level altogether. And that was the two examples I would always hover at. And I think what that is because when Rangers are getting near the goal, time stops because you're so emotionally invested. You know, everything slows down. If you think you're going to be in a car crash or something, everything slows down. I have the same feeling about Rangers. Oh my God, we're going to score. My world is stopping. And it slows everything down. But that last week, Chermiti's first goal was so quick. It was so quick in the game as well. It was breathtaking, finally. Thank you, Big Youssef, for giving us that example to put into my little oft-repeated discussion about the difference between watching a game in the flesh and watching it in the television. And there'll be fewer Rangers fans watching it in the flesh tomorrow, and that's a disgrace. It's not. We want to get it back. We want to get it back, but it's them first, and it's always got to be them first. They get to get back to something approaching their normal size of support. In these games, it's because it's a Scottish Cup. I don't know how you doing, folks. This is your Fatek. The last time Rangers won the league, we beat Celtic at Ibrox in the Scottish Cup, and a saint from a city beginning with P won both of the major domestic cup competitions. So if we do the business tomorrow, also have a wee look out and watch for St Mirren against Partick Thistle. Tough game for St Mirren on paper, but have a wee look out for St Mirren against Partick Thistle, and hope St Mirren get through to help us win the league, although that's obviously going to deny the Scottish Cup. And the last time we played in the Scottish Cup, we put 8 past Queen's Park on the 8th of February, and now here we are playing another Glasgow hooped club in the top 3 of all-time Scottish Cup winners on the 8th of March. So if it finishes 7-0 to Rangers tomorrow, it's a bloody disgrace, and questions will need to be asked. Celtic at Ibrox, Mark II, the Cup Edition preview pod, coming to you in association with Gersnet. Check out Gersnet. It was on Friday night. The preview pod, previewing this game, what I'm previewing just now, and it was Rob and it was Alan. I'm coming to you in association with Gersnet, and I'm also sponsored by all the people. It's free sponsor. I'm giving this out for free to all the people who do the original podcast or the original Instagram posts or the people who do the original videos that then get sent to me. And this happens to you as well on my YouTube algorithm. With some wee prat, it's usually a bloke, who's superimposed footage of himself in front of it, going, yeah, I agree with this. Yeah, I agree with this. And at first I used to get these things. You'll have seen them yourself. If you're on YouTube just now watching me, you'll be unable to avoid them. It's people who... There's people out there, for example, there's one doing the rounds last week. It's the wife of an American serviceman who's been sent off to war, which isn't a war by the Department of War, who then became a Department of Defence again. Donald Trump attacking Iran, and everybody wants the Ayatollahs dead and that regime overthrown. But you know what? That's not what it's all about. And this woman's just saying, I fucking hate Trump, and anybody who, and if you remember my family, if you're one of my friends who supported Trump, well then you're sending my man off illegally just to distract from the Epstein files. We're sending these people to mortal danger, and I hate you. And it was heartfelt, and it's fantastic stuff that I all totally agreed with. It's fantastic. It was terrible. Women should never have to make that, but it was really spot on and worth spreading the news as well as to how people are feeling about this. But it came to me via somebody else's podcast, and I've noticed there's 2 or 3 of these folk doing the rounds on, and I've actually started blocking them, because what they do is they get sensational stuff by other people that they agree with. I think it's because they agree with it that you don't notice, and they just superimpose themselves like tiny people who come in under the door in Mulholland Drive and they had to drive. No, that met her off the plane when she first arrived, and then they're coming under the door to remind her that she's a failure and she's murdered her girlfriend and that, and she kills herself. But they put themselves in like tiny. They can do editing like what I can, and they would be at the front of this video, for example, that I'm doing just now, and they'd be down there. And they'd be going, yeah, I agree with what X saying. I agree. They're pointing up, and they'd get, yeah, or they're pointing down and going, or they'll introduce it. Listen to what this wife of a serviceman in the States was saying. It's really, really passionate, and I thoroughly agree with the point she's making about this illegal war. And the point, and you're like, and you realise then they come up again with something else. It comes up with your algorithm again, the same person. They're taking somebody else's material. They're hijacking somebody else's heartfelt kind of emotional plea or somebody else's hard work, putting together a video. And all they're doing is just reposting it and going, I agree. They can be sitting up on a bag of chips and crisps because they just spend the whole video going, I don't know why they need to put themselves on it. That somehow, does that make it not illegal for them to do it? Does that let them still get... They're obviously making money from advertising, from the views and what have you, but it's somebody else's hard work. They're doing somehow somebody who's reposting somebody else's work to disagree with it and to insult the person making these posts or whatever. That seems more honest, because they're abusing them in an open way as opposed to abusing them in a kind of plagiarising sort of way. You know, it's a bit like, I mean, for example, for me, I block these people now because they're not doing anything original. They're not putting any actual thought into it. They're just people who know how to work algorithms and work. It's a technical exercise for them. I know how to drive traffic on YouTube. And fuck off. You know, what do you actually feel? What do you actually think yourself? So I block these people now because I'm not doing anything original. And for example, like me, right? Last Saturday, I put out a podcast previewing Rangers at home to Celtic at lunchtime the following Sunday. And here I am this Saturday doing something completely different, completely original, and I'm just what I'll probably do. I'll probably get Rangers review. Was it Derek and Johnny McFarlane? They were on it yesterday, Friday. I'll probably just get that and repost that, and just have myself pointing at it, going, "I totally agree with what Johnny's saying. Oh, I totally agree with what Derek's saying." And maybe I should do that. Derek Clark, oftentimes the host of Rangers Review. The last time Rangers beat Celtic in the Scottish Cup, I met him. Shook hands with him, introduced him. I was going to force myself into his company. I was just annoying him, if I'm going to be honest. But and I heard that he's seen the Rangers Review yesterday that he's coming up to Glasgow for this because he works. Is it Bolton? He says, "I down that area." He actually lives down there, and I think that's where he's been a journalist, a hard-working journalist in that area, and he's doing the Rangers Review as well because obviously he's a Rangers man, he's Scottish, etc. And I was doing something else at the time back in 2022. I'd been working on something. There was a couple of guys from the PA, and that's how I ended up in the press area as a wee kind of thanks. I ended up in the press area at Hampden for that one. I couldn't get a ticket through. I get saved again by a mate. I ended up getting in there. I couldn't get a ticket through Rangers. I hadn't signed up to my jersey. I didn't really realise how it worked at the time. I just thought the fact that I always went to Hampden to see Rangers, I always bought a ticket, would get me in there. But I ended up in the press area, the kind of really innocent, not doing any hard work at all, couldn't type a sentence if they tried, areas of the press area at Hampden for that one. And this fella I've been working with on this actual project, he gets, "Oh, you know Derek Clark?" I said, "I've seen him on the Rangers Review and that, but I don't really." He said, "If you ever see him, just let my..." The guy doesn't understand that I don't actually know Derek. I don't work with him. I just watch his podcasts. I'm not a journalist. And anyway, and then there I was walking up, there was Derek Clark sitting right there, right in front of me. I think Joshua Barry was there as well. And I said, "Derek," and the guy such and such that used to work with, he says hello. He's like, "All right, how's he getting on?" Fine. And that was it. Obviously he's busy. It's an Old Firm semi-final in the Scottish Cup, so he's got better things to do than talk to me. But maybe that's the lucky thing. Maybe I have to roam around the press area outside the entrance to the press area at Ibrox tomorrow to see if I can see Derek Clark and just touch him. Does that sound dodgy? Just rush up and touch Derek Clark? Is he got an injunction out against me? Is that maybe a restraining order would be in case? Just touch him. Not anything violent or sexual or anything. Just touch. There would probably be some sexual stuff in there. I think he's very good. But no, so that's maybe the good luck thing that we need tomorrow. Me to touch Derek Clark as he goes to host the. My name's Alec Anderson. Have you got colour in your cheeks? Do you ever get that fear that you can't shift, the type that sticks around like summit in your teeth? Are there some aces up your sleeve? Have you no idea that you're in deep? I dreamt about you nearly every night this week. How many secrets can you keep? 'Cause there's this tune I found that makes me think of you somehow, and I play it on repeat until I fall asleep. Spilling drinks on my settee. Do I wanna know if this feeling flows both ways? Sad to see you go. Was sorta hoping that you'd stay. Baby, we both know that the nights were mainly made for saying things that you can't say tomorrow day. Sectarian things that you can't say, that you can't actually say, in normal society at your work and all that, but they still seem to be getting said, all from crawling back to you. Ever thought of calling when you had a few? 'Cause I know I do. Crawling back to you, the same team we played last week, we're going to play them this week. How many secrets can you keep? How you doing, folks? As I say, my name's Alec Anderson, and tomorrow, I'm talking to you on Saturday afternoon. Scotland have just scored the first try against France in that game at Murrayfield, going for the championship, apparently, but they're going for the Triple Crown as well, even though France aren't involved in the Triple Crown, but that's still up for grabs, even if they get beat off France, which they probably will today. But I am talking to you kind of early afternoon on Saturday ahead of Rangers' second straight game against Celtic. This is the fourth, this will be the fourth time I've seen Celtic in the flesh this season. Fifth time Rangers have played them so far. That's 3 different competitions and 5 different managers have been involved. When's the last time Rangers beat Celtic in front of a crowd in the Scottish Cup at Ibrox? When's the last time? I know we played them, the last time we played in the Scottish Cup at Ibrox was during COVID season. Stevie D, MBE, doing his wee overhead kick goal into the Brimlin like big Youssef Chermi T last week. But when's the last time we actually beat them in this? Because we played them. This is only the 4th time we will be playing Celtic in the Scottish Cup at Ibrox in 62 years. 62 years in the Celtic. We've played them at Parkhead in the Scottish Cup. I would say it's at least 20. I think it's closer to 3 times that in that same period. We go to Parkhead all the time in the Scottish Cup, but this is only the 4th time we played. And I'm not even including the time we played them at Parkhead in the semi-final when it was being used as a neutral venue and we get half of Parkhead. It was a semi-final in '98 because Hampden was getting redeveloped at the time. No, I just generally. I've seen Fernando Rickson scoring for us in the Scottish Cup on a Sunday. I was there at that one. We get beat 2-1 and stuff like that. Just constantly going to Parkheads in successive seasons and stuff like that in the Scottish Cup. So it's really rare for Rangers to draw Celtic at Ibrox in the Scottish Cup, but it's even more rare for us to beat them at all. We've only beaten them once. 1963-64, the season that we won the treble, one of the greatest Rangers teams of all time. It was Jim Forrest and Willie Henderson got the goals, beat them 2-0. I think that was a quarter final. Ended up beating Dundee in the Scottish Cup final. It was a great final to clinch the treble under Scott Simon. But that was the quarter final. We beat Celtic at Ibrox 2-0, and there was 84,723 or something. Over 84,700 at the game. So that was quite a thing. That's the last time we beat them in front of a crowd because we played them. The only other time I've played them was 2010-11 when we drew 2 each with them, and that was the game that proved. And it went to replay, which we lost at Parkhead, and Walter had to gut out both Ali and Neil Lennon for acting like wee wains in the touchline with a couple of players sent off. It was all going pretty badly. Neil Lennon in charge of Celtic and there's trouble and things like that. It's not understandable, but why does Celtic need a crowd tomorrow? Because remember Bruni scored the goal that day for Celtic. Remember Jamie Ness scoring an absolute cracker for Rangers, talking about great starts and spectacular goals into the Celtic end at the start of an all-firm game. But remember Bruni scored that goal and he get right up at El Hadj Diouf's face. And he scored it into the Celtic end, into Brimlin Road stand, where there was 7,500 to 8,000 Celtic fans just baying with joy, wanting their captain to run up and celebrate with them, but instead he turned to get in the face of a Rangers player. So what's the point? What's just wasted? Why would that be your priority? There's no joy. It's just all kind of greasy, small-minded bitterness, even in your most joyful. It's a great goal, great finish, curling ball into top corner and that kind of stuff. But no, that was, and it ends up after that. I mean, they won the Scottish Cup that season, Celtic, but we beat them to the league title, and we also we beat them in the League Cup final as well. So it didn't come to anything. You maybe concentrate in your own game. So it's a strange one. But that's the last time we've actually. The last time we beat Celtic in front of a crowd in the Scottish Cup at Ibrox, 62 years ago, 1964. So, bit of history has to be made tomorrow. I would say now we've got to go 2-0 up before we even feel like we're starting again with a clean slate in this kind of game. After what happened last Sunday, they'll no be getting lauded off the pitch. Rangers at 2-0 up at half time on this time. And maybe the bigger Celtic support for this game, no just kind of poked away in their little corner like they were last week in their wee kind of brown and olive green, they're kind of dun-coloured black jackets. There was hardly one Celtic jersey. I couldn't see an actual Celtic jersey out there. They were like little thrushes, like throstles, whatever. The underparts are slightly olive, but mostly buff with a lot of brown splodges on it. It's something you'd see at the bottom of a hedge, making a bit of noise, jumping about. You think it might be a rat or something, some sort of vermin. You think it's that's too much. You know what I'm saying? And you go, oh no, it's all right. It's something to something to look at. A bit of spectacle tomorrow. Make more noise, like a song thrush, perhaps. Maybe a bit more honest with this. It was like hanging about a lamp post last week. It really wasn't. It wasn't quite the. But they'll be on the anoraks and that, but I'm sure they'll be resplendent tomorrow in their hooped tops and glowing gold and white Vatican flags. I think that'll actually help the Rangers players focus more completely, certainly according to Danny Röhl in his pre-match presser on Friday. He really seemed quite annoyed at the fact Celtic were going to have a big support of this game. After all, one of this team's best performances this season, this Rangers team's best performances this season, came at Parkhead after going 1-0 down. There was 60,000 Celtic fans singing the place down. So maybe we can't cruise in a game, it seems. We scored 3 goals in a 20-minute spell in the second half of that game. As time was kind of running out, we go our other best performance this season against Hearts, we go 2 goals down. We go a goal down twice, or we go behind twice in the game before we win it 4-2. We a Chermiti hat-trick at the centre of that. So maybe we need things to be... But that's why Danny Röhl keeps telling us the way it's going to happen. That's why we're so fixated in the title going down to the wire, going down to the last day of the season, that we think that's how it's got to be. Things can't get too easy. Going 2-0 up after less than half an hour last Sunday was just messing with our own chi, the way that chi's been established by our guru in chief. We're at bottom club Livingston. We're playing Livingston at home. They haven't won a league game since August. How are we going to make this more interesting? Tell you what, no Soapy, no. Tell you, lads, I'll give you a couple of free kicks and we'll see. That'll maybe help us. That'll make it more exciting. But this is the cup, though. This is the cup. Win or you are out. And we've certainly cruised in the cup so far. We beat Annan 5-0 at Ibrox the first round we took part in. I think was it the 5th round? And we then beat Queen's Park 8-0 at Ibrox in the next round. So Celtic have to be beaten 11-0 or something's really going wrong. But not, I mean, what I say to Celtic support tomorrow is I've got to park somewhere else. I've got to move my car. It's getting to the stage now, playing Celtic lunchtime on a Sunday. I feel as if it's that time of year as well. Oh, it's 1 o'clock kick-off tomorrow. It was 12 last week. Is a bit of the clock's gone forward. Is this to make up for the hour less we'll get in bed or something? It's just becoming a regular thing, but I'm going to have to move. I'm going to park somewhere else for the first time in years, really. Because you guys will... I know you have to go to come in early and get away late and that, but I'm not hanging about up there. But please just stick it, make it worth my while. Could you just sing at least one rendition of each of the old favourites, which haven't really rung out of the West End of Ibrox for what feels like a generation, really. You'll never walk alone. Really, the Celtic flags used to go, you'll never walk on, with hope in my heart. They would do all that stuff. It's a really... kind of twee, but Boys of the Old Brigade, I get that. You got to belt the old Boys of the Old Brigade. Then Grace or Disgrace, get that sung, and the Roller Coaster of Honour, all the classics, get them out, and let's have the IRA all the way. Burling the scarves, fuck the Queen, and the UDA, and we all go UDA all the way, fuck the Pope. Yeah, I remember that. That was in the 80s. Used to do that just at the time when the bar scarves had come out. So it was, and we'd all seen it. We got that for Hearts. It was Hearts that did was it the Tynecastle Blizzard, the Jambos Blitz or something they used to call it. But they'd all wear their scarves around their heads. I remember that was the time I was going to games home and away every week. We saw the Jambos doing that at the old Tynecastle at the school end. And that wee corner, that wee dark corner I used to have at Tynecastle Terrace, and would sweep round to the side, and that's what the singing was, and somebody's grass about. And that's a corner like even the Green Brigade, when they haven't fell out with Celtic, they only got a corner, don't they? Actually getting to have like tifos and all that at Ibrox tomorrow. It's square on the pitch because they're in our majestical stadium, they're in our palace where we treat supporters right. So maybe the least you can do is put on the songs that we want to hear. I like the idea of eliminating the only club in front of us in the Scottish Cup all-time winners list, straight after eliminating the club directly behind us in the all-time winners list. No, we beat Queen's Park in the last round, and they won the Scottish Cup most times. I know I say this all the time. Even if it's not a Scottish Cup game, I mention this, but we have played Queen's Park twice. In the last, we've played Queen's Park in the last 2 seasons in the Scottish Cup. Aberdeen, but then winning the Scottish Cup, they're still in it. They're the holders. When they won it last season, they went joint with Hearts as the joint fourth on the all-time winners list. The Hearts and Aberdeen have won it 8 times each. That's the most after Queen's Park. They've won it 8 times each. So we could get, if we were to beat Celtic tomorrow, we could then get Aberdeen in the semi-final. And we could then get into the final and face St Mirren, who are one of the 5 clubs in joint 6th in the all-time Scottish Cup winners list on 3 wins each. I think it's Clyde, Vale of Leven, Kilmarnock, Hibs. Something. So if St Mirren would... Although, to be honest, I actually feel as if the way things are going this season, and as I say, we would need to win the league, and that would mean like St Johnstone in 2021, winning both the cup competitions. The last time we won the league, we'd have St Mirren this time, and that would make them, they would go outright 6th by joining ourselves and Queen's Park and Celtic and Aberdeen and Hearts as only the 6th club to have won the Scottish Cup 4 times. I'm quite into the stats when it comes to this stuff. I'm just not very good at expressing them, you know. So yeah, we've got to watch your singing. We've got to watch. I think we now can't sing. My dream last Sunday was I was trying to set this up a week ahead. Maybe I got ahead of myself. Maybe that's the problem that helped Rangers lose focus. I need to win this. We need to win this league game this week, so Celtic can't catch us up in the league by winning at Pittodrie. So when we put them out the Scottish Cup next week, we can sing straight at those 7,500 Celtic fans. Fuck all, you're gonna win. Fuck all. You know, even though it's not even necessarily true, we can't. There's no way of telling. Even if we were ahead of them in the league, but they're now a point ahead of us in the league because we couldn't beat them last week. So it'd be a bit ironic. The more, but who cares? It's all about the self-deprecating sense of humour, isn't it? Like the Billy Boys, Big Jock New. We can't be singing stuff like that tomorrow. Although I'm not going to heavily, knowing what Celtic fans sing, I'm not really going to go on about this. It's more as a kind of practical one. Big Jock New. The one thing about that disgusting song is, at least it proves there's no MAGA fans in the Rangers support. We all hate Donald Trump. That's one good thing about that. There's no right-wing nutters in the Rangers support. If they're singing Big Jock New, well, I mean, Donald Trump, he more than knew. He obviously participated in disgusting stuff, paedophilia and that kind of thing. So stick to it. Is it horrible to talk about that in a podcast? Well, what's it like? There's fucking 40,000 of us singing about it at a football match. Just stick to sing in the chapel. Just sing in the chapel. That came out last Sunday as well. Sing in the chapel. You only sing because, of course, a chapel is, technically speaking, it's just a small church. A chapel is actually just a small church, irrespective of denomination. I've been to weddings, funerals, what's the other thing, christenings, Catholic churches, and they're huge. They're all massive. 60,000 Parkhead Hods. It's a big mob. You know what I mean? They're big buildings. So singing in the chapel, you're singing a wee church. It's more likely that we've got the wee churches than us. Because I'm so religious. But more to the point, Martin O'Neill would use, I think, especially with the publicity, if you can call it that, so well publicised incidents, horrible incidents of racism in La Liga in particular, also Real Madrid at Benfica in the Champions League. Horrible racist incidents. Well, the game now gets held up. It would get reported. Points deductions. Maybe get chucked out the Scottish Cup despite winning on the day. You never know what's going to happen, and it's the kind of, if we're singing these kind of songs, the famine song and stuff like that, it's the anti-Irish racism. Is that what it is? I mean, I'm saying there's absolutely no non-Irish kind of Scottish Protestant or whatever racism going on amongst the Celtic support. It's all part of the banter, isn't it? It really isn't. But it's, you need to watch ourselves, because it'd be just like Martin O'Neill, despite him not having reacted or said anything about all those songs being sung in his lugs last week. And I don't like Martin O'Neill, but the fucking sad Fenian bastards in your shit football team, that's just got to go. We can't be doing that. Cannot be doing that at all. It's pretty horrific. There might be Celtic fans who it doesn't really bother them because they want to say stuff about Huns and what have you, and that's who we think we're attacking. It's toxic. There's nothing I can do to stop it, obviously. But you'd be opening up a can of worms. Martin, you'll be opening up a can of worms if he was to go to town on that. But that's it. It distracts, it obfuscates, exploiting a very worthwhile cause and something that does need to be spoken about, but doing it for all the wrong reasons. Doing it for selfish reasons, doing it to protect his reputation, doing it to protect his legacy. That's Martin O'Neill's style. So it's nothing to do with his religion, it's him as a person. Him as a person, let's no play into his hands apart from just basically these songs. Just, I know there's big arguments going about this all the time, and I hate getting into it. We all suddenly start getting very equivocatory. Anyway, Martin O'Neill would absolutely love it if we're singing many Sectarian songs tomorrow. So La Celtic will have the entire Broomloan this Sunday, and I feel that that's more honest than having any more than 800 of them just hanging about that kind of corner, like they're hanging about under a lamppost as they were last Sunday. There was something really not very nice about that at all. It was a bit squalid. So either have about 800 Celtic fans in the stadium who are squarely or diagonally in front of the Jumbotron screen between the Broomloan and the Sandy Jardin, or just get them behind the goal. Get them directly behind the goal, where they can show us how much they enjoy coming to Ibrox and absolutely not being in any way bothered by Simply the Best, because they sing it too. They sing Simply the Best. They might sing it harder than us. They love Simply the Best because they've won 13 out of the last 14 titles. How can we possibly be the best? How have you been getting on in Europe in the same period of time? Maybe that's self-awareness, not at all. This is the 5th straight season we've met a hooped Glasgow side in the Scottish Cup, and the previous 3 have seen our involvement end. Queen's Park last season put us out. Celtic in the 2024 final. They beat us that one, Celtic in the 2023 Scottish Cup semi-final, and Michael Beale's Rangers getting beat, and of course we beat Celtic in the 2 previous seasons. The 2022 semi-final, went to extra time at Hampden, Scotty Arfield equalising. This is just days after we'd played a European quarter-final that went to extra time and won it against Braga. And then there was the 2021 last 16 match at Ibrox during COVID, no crowd there. Stevie D, MBE, overhead kick, not the Ballymena Messi, but Messi calls himself the Rosario Stephen Davis. And this run ends, if a run can end, by going back the way, back in 2019-20 when Hearts put us at the Scottish Cup at Tynecastle, days after we'd gone through against Braga. And the first time we met Braga in Europe, we'd won in Braga. And Alfredo Morelos didn't play. Ryan Kent getting the only goal of the game, but Alfredo Morelos didn't play. He was suspended for that European tie, so he went home, and I think because we got a great result and he wasn't there, he went in a bit of a huff or whatever, didn't come back in time, didn't play, and Hearts ended up pitting us out the Scottish Cup, and we felt as if he was maybe a bit responsible for that, Alfredo. But that was after we gone through against. But the Jambos, who are well out of this season's competition, are also the last team we beat after facing a hooped side in the Scottish Cup, no, the 2022 final. We beat Celtic in the semi-final, but we played Hearts and we beat them in the final. Hearts, Claudio Braga plays for them. He scored against us this season. We've played Braga again in Europe this season. Are we destined to win the Scottish Cup? It's quite... So we're kind of hoping Celtic become that this season as well, because we've beat a hooped Glasgow club in the last round, so we would be beating another one. If we beat them tomorrow, we've beaten another club after playing a hooped Glasgow club. It's Queen's Park, you see what I mean? But then again, Partick Thistle, we played them in the 2022-2023 Scottish Cup and we beat them at Ibrox. Remember the game Scott Tiffany was allowed to walk one in? Well, Alan McGregor wasn't let him walk it in, but because Malik Tillman didn't know that they'd put the ball out or the ball had gone out because of an injury. I think it was an injury to him, but he was so busy getting injured or being injured, he didn't realise it was been doing that whole thing, and he grabbed the ball and he scored and they'd gone mental, so we let them score anyway to make up for that, but we beat them anyway. So they were wearing hoops that day, though. Was it more panels? Partick Thistle sometimes have the stripes, the red and yellow stripes, and it just be really good. Back in the day, late 70s, early 80s, the red and yellow stripes with the black Umbro trim and the black shorts and the black socks with the red and yellow fold in the socks. Used to be quite a smart strip, Partick Thistle, but sometimes they kind of... It's not even hoops. I don't know if the panels are too big, but they're definitely horizontal rather than vertical. Maybe they're too big to be called hoops. Does that count as having beaten a Glasgow hooped side, and but the game after that we beat Raith Rovers at Ibrox in the Scottish Cup, who were wearing an away kit, and it was pink or kind of salmon pink or kind of scarlet. Anyway, and it was just that one block colour, self-coloured top, so there was no hoops involved. But then the last time we played Raith Rovers in the Scottish Cup and they pit us out of the Scottish Cup, the season after they beat us in the Challenge Cup final, they beat us at Ibrox in the Scottish Cup, our first season in the Championship, the one we didn't get out the Championship. We had 15 young guys from Newcastle making their debut, I think, in that game. And they put us out the Scottish Cup. We were both Championship sides, so we weren't getting put out by a side from a lower league, but we were both lower league sides. When they put us at Raith Rovers, it was a Sunday at a desolate Ibrox, and they were wearing their Hunting Stuart tartan tribute to the Royal Scots Regiment, which was kind of green and black hoops. Obviously, it wasn't actual tartan as such. It was a tribute to it, but that was green and black hoops. So we beat. I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. I'm just obsessed with clubs that play in hoops. Hampden can wait. Hampden's going to have to wait. How long it's going to wait, I don't know. But I'm talking about beating Celtic at Hampden, because this is a major problem for us. We're playing Celtic in the Scottish Cup tomorrow, but Celtic at Hampden has been a horror thing for us, despite the fact it's 2022 since we last beat them in the Scottish Cup, and that's, particularly somebody my age, that's only 4 years ago. What's the big deal? It's the number of times I've played them since then in the Scottish, all at Hampden, I think, since then, and we've lost a bloody lot of them. If we don't win this game tomorrow, we'll be nowhere near Hampden for this one, obviously, but Hampden wins versus... With 2 Scottish Cup semi-final wins in the last 10 years against Celtic at Hampden. Amazing as both were, it's a woeful record considering the number of Old Firm semi-finals and finals we've played since that League Cup semi-final in early 2015, which was the first Old Firm match since we'd dropped into the lower leagues. But that can and will have to wait until next season. Me stuck outside Hampden doing a post-match reaction pod for Jersnet for the Fat Egg podcast. Stuck outside Hampden, giving it fucking lost to Celtic again. I didn't do a podcast after the 2022s. I was doing them with Colin at that point, and he wasn't at that one because he actually actively objects to the My Gels thing, and I get that. So he didn't get a ticket for that one either. I just get in because all the stuff that had been happening, that I've been getting involved in. So I didn't want to do the podcast without Colin that time. And end up there's no podcast after. There's never been a podcast by myself after Rangers have beaten Celtic at Hampden. We need to do that. But beating them at Celtic beating Celtic at Hampden can and will have to wait until next season. Right now, it's about Old Firm Cup games, just playing them in knockout competitions. Since beating Postecoglou's Celtic in that 2022 Scottish Cup semi-final, we've lost to Celtic in 2 League Cup finals, a Scottish Cup final, and 1 semi-final of each competition. The big priority is the league right now, but this goes with it. This would be the next priority anyway, and it's all part of the same kind of cyclical, self-serving need to stop being dominated by anybody really domestically. And Celtic are the only club who can claim to be dominating us before you start doing the dominating yourself. That's the ultimate goal. We have stopped being dominated by Celtic in terms of derby clashes. Celtic haven't won any of their last 6 league games against us, but they feel they're on top still, the Old Firm derby, because we're not stopping them winning any trophies. Not last season and not in any season recently. They're beating us after extra time and or penalties within that same half dozen league games that they can't beat us in, this run that we're on just now. So the same way you can't start playing football until you've won the physical battle in a football match itself, I don't think you can start becoming the dominant team in any country until you have beaten in every aspect the club that is dominating you. Sometimes that can happen one in the same moment. You might end up playing against the team that's the reigning league champions, and the other team you have to beat to win the title, and you play them the last day of the season, and that's it. So you've done the 2 things at once. You've dominated them on the pitch while stopping them winning something, or you beat them in the Scottish Cup final or something like that, the very last day of the domestic season. But normally you have to spend a bit of time chipping away at the team that's dominating you before you start dominating, and we seem to be on the road towards doing that at this point in time. Used to be we couldn't beat Celtic at all, and now they're it's 2024. It's over two. Well, it's getting to it. It's like 1.5 years basically, but it's 6 league games since I've beaten us. 8 games since I've beaten us over 90 minutes. But they are those games that go beyond 90 minutes. They go to extra time. Go to extra time as the League Cup semi did this season, and penalties as the League Cup final did last season. Celtic are still winning them. This Sunday is about more than the Scottish Cup. There it is, what a quote. Isn't it always? Again, the insight from the Fat Egg podcast, this Sunday is about more than just the Scottish Cup. I'm not talking about the religious aspect of things at all. I'm just... St Mirren have stopped Celtic winning the treble. Tomorrow we can go and at least stop them being able to win a double, and making worry about trying to stop them winning the league, in which we will have some help from others. Is Youssef's Urwally pose on appositely an upturned photographer's case to take a mental picture of his greatest ever finish going to be this season's image of our rapid rise to success? Or is it going to be an image of our partial hubris this season? We thought we were going to win the league this season. We thought we were going to do big things this season, but nah, we didn't at the beginning of the season, and then the beginning of the season turned into a nightmare. So it was just about getting a bit of self-respect back. We were 8th in the table, no hope of winning anything, and then we got a taste of it. We got up close, but last week was that the moment we got as high as we're going to get. We are scalping Celtic. We are getting them out the road. We can now concentrate on Hearts. We're getting them out the road in the league. Big Youssef sitting there doing his Urwally thing. What is that image going to mean? Because I think Chermiti's going to be gone in the summer. He's out of here. He's got Crystal Palace, diluted version of what they've got just now, signing written all over him, or Wolverhampton Wanderers parachute payments, aided signing going. He's not what we had in the Premier League, but he's fantastic. Agents all across the world. Kevin Thelwell's all across the world. Kevin Thelwell explained to us how directors of football think about Youssef Chermiti. He's got the stats. He's got the physical stats. He ticks all the boxes. It's not about scoring goals. But then this is the way he'll be seen as well. It's the Old Firm game. There's only one fucking game in Scotland, mate. There's only one game. It's the Old Firm game. Big Jimmy, he scored 4 fucking goals against Celtic. Get him signed and knock down price. You know what I mean? Get him. The Arts, the old Jam Tarts, they're doing quite well in Scotland this season. He scored 4 fucking goals against them as well. Get him. They don't care that he's not scoring against Hibs. He's not scoring against Motherwell. That he's not scoring against Falkirk or Dundee United. The agents now will see the goals. That goal will be shown around the world. Both his goals against Celtic last Sunday will be shown around the world. Chermiti's gone in the summer. He is away, and it's how will this goal be remembered? How will that overhead kick goal be remembered? Is he going to come up with one that's even better tomorrow? I doubt it. Snagging items. What I got wrong in my last podcast, nearly as much as I've got wrong in this one already. Jim Duffy. Jesus, I'm sorry, Jim Duffy. I'm doing this thing now. I don't know if you can see there's daylight, a bit of daylight still coming in as I'm recording this pod before tea time. I'm getting to early bird special age. I think if I do anything after tea time, it's just I really want to be in my bed by that point in time. The brain fog is increasing. It might be full scale Alzheimer's. You never know. Maybe the start of that. We'll find out as we go on. But it's happening more often now. I'm doing that thing. Maybe it's just getting towards the end of the season. I'm like Rangers. I'm getting more tired with less games. I forgot I couldn't get Jim Duffy's second name. I couldn't get the Duffy part of Jim Duffy in that pod during the week. It's actually quite a good thing that I can remember. I'm telling you all sorts of stuff about European Cup semi-finals involving Real Madrid that happened before I was even born. But Jim Duffy, who was born like a mile up the road from where I'm sitting right now, who I saw in the flesh playing against Rangers and managing teams against Rangers probably 12, 20 times at least in my lifetime. I've walked past him in the street. Jim Duffy, heard him in the radio, or as a pundit, watching him managing various teams and all that. I've seen him in more interviews than anything else. Couldn't get his second. I couldn't get Ross McCausland's name last week. But what's happened is it's quite a good wee thing. I've started doing it like that quiz, in the Rangers TV. They have is it player pathway quiz, they call it, where it's like animal, vegetable, mineral, but it's about a player, and they start giving a player from the Rangers team has to sit there and get filmed while he's given these clues to help him identify a famous footballer who may or may not have played for Rangers. And they start off with the club. This is the first club he played for when he was a kid. And then he got a move to such and such. Liam Kelly was good. The other day, I get Ronaldinho before I had Grimio. There's a classic picture of Ronaldinho as a kid in his Grimio top. in International Porto Alegre. They're the big rivals for Grêmio. That's the big derby. You know, it's the I think Rio Grande do Sul. Is that the area? I've seen them. They played at Ibrox in that pre-season tournament, but after Soonest won the league the first time before into the following season, where Celtic won the double, and we come back from 2 goals down. The only time we took points off Celtic that season was we were 2-0 down against Celtic. That 10 men in the park, and we only had 9 men in the park, and we scored 2 goals into the Celtic and shot towards the Celtic end the second half, which was great because it was just a game of denying them something rather than us really winning anything. So Ali McCoy's an injured and that got to celebrate Richard Goff's equaliser in the faces of 7,500 Celtic fans in the Broomland Road stand. We did that, but got to see International Porto Alegre, who are Grêmio's big rivals. But Ronaldinho, I got that one. But that's just what I'm doing when I lose the name that I'm trying to get of a player or a football personality. I still know lots about them. So the other night I was able to say he played for Dundee, he played for Partick Thistle, he played for Morton, he played against Rangers 3 times in a week. I mean, I was at all 3 games. We drew with Morton at Capello in the Scottish Cup in the snow, the 3 each game. Then we had them back at Ibrox midweek for the replay. We won that 2-0, and then we beat them in the league. We won that 3-1 the replay. Then we beat them 2-0 in the league the following Saturday. So I saw Jim, what's his name, playing it. I was able to tell you that he's born in Maryhill and his first name is Jim, but he get called James by Charlie Nicholas, who he calls Charles, because they grew up together in Maryhill. Their mums knew each other, so their mums would be telling them to use the polite form of it's no, I'm not having Charlie, it's Charles. You know, it's not the way your mum does. I knew all this stuff about him, knew about his childhood, but I could not get the name. But what I was doing was giving you lots of clues. So you're sitting, as soon as I stop recording, it's another 25 minutes, sometimes an hour before the pod actually gets uploaded, before you get to see it. As soon as it starts recording, I just look it up on my laptop or go and grab one of the books and check it out, find out. And I'm like, oh, I've moved on in my life. But you're watching a podcast where I'm going, he's done this, he's Baldy and all that. Manager of Partick Thistle. No, he played for Partick Thistle and he's managed Falkirk, managed Dundee. And you're going, it's Jim fucking Duffy. Would you stop going on about it? So what I'll do next time is I'll stop going on about it through the course of the podcast. If I can't get it, I'll give you all the clues, and it turns into a wee quiz, a wee bit of fun that you can have. You know, the fella that he started his career at Newell's Old Boys. He was in the youth system. He's a Wayne, basically, Newell. Then he goes to Catalonia. He plays for Barcelona for years. 8 Ballons d'Or. He won the World Cup in the Copa America with Argentina. It's something tidy. His Christian name, I know this, his dad named him after a fella that was in the Commodores, and then he went solo, and he did the thing, no, hello, is it me you're looking for in the video? The lassie's blind and she's checking out his chin, and she does the bust, the kind of, the bust of his face, and she's got his jaw to perfection because it's twice the size of the rest of the thing. But he's is it Davy Tidy, Ralph Tidy? We'll do that. That'll be good fun, right? Actual stuff that we should be talking about. Danny Röhl's presser. This one's going to be even longer than the last podcast, and you've got even less time to watch this. I'm so sorry, folks. It's verbal diarrhea. Danny Röhl's pre-match presser on the Friday. Nach dem Spiel ist vor dem Spiel. It's like you're preparing for a game against the same team he played last week. I was expecting him to just go pure Sepp Herberger and go, Nach dem Spiel ist vor dem Spiel. More than ever it is this week. He seemed a tad salty in the presser yesterday. Danny Röhl, plenty of smiles, but they could have been sardonic smirks, a lot of them. He was taking gentle, almost unnoticeable exception to some of the questions. I think it was Big Rahman. Big Rahman's probably Ramadan just now, so he's probably hangry, and he went in there quite kind of harsh and crude. And I think Danny Röhl's face, you keep seeing him kind of, well, is that right? But he never said anything. It's just the expressions on his face, so I'm maybe reading too much into it. But he's hurting from last Sunday, I think, and I hope this leads to itself to a vengeful rather than worried and depressed Rangers taking the pitch tomorrow in a Scottish Cup match. His emphasis really was on us decimating Celtic in the first 50 minutes last week. He kept going on about that a bit too much as far as I'm concerned. He wasn't keen to even acknowledge that they ended up drawing the game. He was saying that we've got to do that. We've got to play the way we played in the first 50 minutes last week for 90 or 120 minutes this Sunday. Extra time and penalties a possibility. Got to be played to a finish. We had a chance for 3-0 last week. He was saying we had a chance to win the game 3-0. I also believe we can beat them. He said that outright. I also believe we can beat them. You beat them at Parkhead 3-1. We believe you can beat them as well, Danny, but I think he knows that Martin O'Neill's Celtic is a different proposition. He reacted well to the guacamole question. I don't know why journalists have to do this thing where they just know that managers and head coaches and that the players even, they don't give them good enough headlines, so they invent the headline and just make the fella they're interviewing agree with it. See, if I said it was guacamole and they can get a picture of, Danny Röhl with a hammer superimposed in his hand hitting a guacamole, the idea was that it used to be we were defending really with lots of clean sheets, but we're only winning games narrowly. But now we're scoring lots of goals, but we're losing lots of goals as well. Is that like guacamole? You get one problem solved and another one pops up. He likes that kind of stuff, man. He was kind of laughing away. That's definitely. That's been what's happening. He seems to react really well to questions that I take exception to, but sometimes his back kind of gets up at questions that I think are totally innocent. It's quite a strange thing, quite a noticeable thing. And that's why he's better than me. Danny Röhl, he sees it the way a genius would see it, whereas I see it like the Haddy I am. He said, we can't score. We can score lots of goals now, but we can't defend. We've conceded 2 goals in each of our last 3 games. It's a fair point. But we had an overload in our box. He's saying 8 versus 4 for the incident that led to Celtic's penalty right at the death last Sunday. So we've got to work on that. I think he's saying I've made sure that I've got the formation right, but the players aren't executing it properly. We're almost scoring 3 goals per game, says Danny, so we should be winning more games. I think that's including beating Annan 5-0 in Queen's Park, 8-0, but we'll give you that anyway. Pip 5 past, come on. Scott Olsen was this week's contract talk that he gently pushed aside. This Hamza, I was talking this last Mikey Moore, why are we talking about contracts? Are these players going to sign for Rangers? Are they going to sign in the summer? Fuck the summer. We've got a season to play now. We've got as many players in as we possibly can. But the January transfer window's over. Can we concentrate? This whole thing, I think, perpetrated by people like me in my small way doing little podcasts. But the media thing, the journalists, they always want you needing more so that you'll give them views. You want to check what they're thinking. You want to get on there and give them the views, give them the advertising revenue as a consequence of that. As a football fan, I want to lose myself in the game, in the moment. I think we should be able to bask. And at what point do we actually concentrate in the game itself? Concentrate on the whole point of it. Even just concentrate on a competition until it's complete. But who are you going to sign next? We never get a chance to actually settle and enjoy the sport itself. See, like Argentina winning the last World Cup, playing possibly the most exciting football match ever played. Certainly in terms of everything that was at stake, the records and the fact that it's the actual World Cup itself is at stake. I think Argentina, they've got quite a busy sports media, you would imagine, but they should just spend the next 4 years talking about nothing else other than that World Cup final. That should be something you're obliged to do as the winner of a World Cup. Just don't talk about anything else. Don't talk about signings. Don't talk about even Messi when he's going to retire and stuff like that. Just keep talking about that game for 4 years, because football fans, we spend our whole life getting projected into the future. What's going to happen? When you get to the point that you get everything you wanted, you should be allowed almost the equivalent time to bask in having achieved that. I know that's not how it works, but it's something to bear in mind. So no, I wasn't getting into it. But the Scott Olsen thing is also because it's a different way of saying it's Scott Olsen not playing as well as he'd hoped he would. He's getting fitter by the game, and I think the way he set up that first goal speaks to what he is able to do. Danny Röhl would be lying, he said, if he said he was happy with how last week's derby ended, but after 50 minutes everyone thought there was only one winner. This is what we did to them at Parkhead. It's what Celtic did to us last week. They reversed it at half-time. He talked to the players this week about game management and tactical aspects. He takes responsibility for the good and the bad of last week's game. Because it's my job. He said this in a way which makes you think, are you though, Danny? Are you really taking responsibility for the bad stuff? Kept talking up that first 50 minutes, and it was like, that sensational. That was on me. That's how I want us to play. The next 50 minutes, if you like, the next 40 odd minutes of the game, I've got to take responsibility for that because it's my job. But it was the arseholes. It's the fucking players. And also he implied that Celtic were lucky. He's saying it's easy for the team that's 2-1 down because they've got nothing to lose. They've got the game to lose. If they go for it too much, they get caught out at the back and they go 3-1 down with 5 minutes to go. They're going to lose the game. Celtic were brave last week and they were good in the second half. We let them play, yeah, but that's on us. There was nothing lucky about it. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. This refusal to accept any kind of defeat. It can go one of two ways. We still have two good opportunities for trophies this season, said Danny Röhl. I hope you can hear the inverted commas I'm putting where I'm quoting Danny Röhl or paraphrasing him. He puts pressure on himself to win stuff, but pressure in football is natural, and it's a big honour for him to be manager of a pressure-laden club like Rangers. Comes with the territory, he was on the verge of saying, I think. Comes with the territory, the pressure. He's getting pushed on the fact that we get put out of the Scottish Cup, we're not doing so well in the league anymore, going to end up trophyless. Is it time for a sacking? But he dealt with that really well, that question. He didn't really answer Joshua Barry of the Rangers Review's question about Ryan Nadiri being able to finish the game this week. He implied Nadiri coming off last week was tactical. If we play 50 minutes like we did last week, the 7,500 will be silent. That's what he said about when somebody asked him about it being a different dynamic in the stadium this week because Celtic have got the whole Celtic end, they've got the whole of Brimland Road stand. He seemed to really take exception to it. He followed it up straight away by saying our crowds had basically put the shits up our players by being so tense when the game went to 2-1 last Sunday, as if we contributed. I think everybody except Danny Röhl was to blame for not what he was saying, but how he was saying it. He was kind of implying that I can't do any more. I can't do any more. How can you chuck that at 2-0? Big Rahman for STV. He came in with something along the lines of, how did the stuff you made a complete arse of last week help you make less of an arse of it this week? How can you use all the things that you got completely wrong last week? You fucking idiot. How can... There's something about the tone for Rahman this week that made me think, and Danny Röhl was kind of rolling his eyes at that one as well. He talked about there's an issue, a tactical issue that he perhaps hadn't been clear enough about to his players before last week's game, or perhaps at half-time in last week's game, and he's cleared that up this week. But there's also emotional aspects to what happened last week. And I think, again, he's implying that Celtic had nothing to lose, jammy bastards, which is not the case at all. And the first 50 minutes last week against Celtic is what he wants Rangers to be like for 90 minutes. That's how he pictures his Rangers team being. Just reading between the lines and the tone with which he was answering these questions, there was a kind of Michael Beale, Mark Warburton, maybe even the dreaded Russell Martin, kind of, if they just do what I tell them, it'd be fine. See, the good stuff that we did, that was me. The other stuff, that's nothing to do. That's the crowd. That's Celtic having nothing to worry about. Hopefully, sometimes you've got to ignore objective truths to be able to pull your team forward by the hair when you have to get through a difficult period. But you can also get to the point where you're ignoring what's going wrong with the team to the point that you can't cure it. So it'll be interesting to see how we proceed now. But he finished up by saying, yes, he does want to win trophies this season, and he has to win trophies to be a successful Rangers manager even this season. And he said it with a big smile on his face, quite open about it, not even a sarcastic smile. So he was quite decent about that one there. The starting 11 for tomorrow, my starting 11, I'm just going to go the 4-2-2-2 again and start the exact same starting 11 if available. Danny Röhl said everybody's back in training. Yeah, nearly everybody's back in training. I'll be damn sure we're not going to be seeing, but we won't be seeing Conor Barron or Derek Cornelius, for example, in tomorrow's game, even in the squad, although somebody was making out Conor Barron's ahead of schedule if he's back in training already. And then followed a kind of... He said Mikey Moore's got a small issue. He's got a small issue, so you could have the gas could come in and be explosive. Exploding gas coming in for Mikey Moore on that left-hand side to get as close as possible to last week's starting 11. But we've got a lot of energy, we've got a lot of power in our team, said Danny Röhl. I think he's wanting to play the same way again. But he said something about there's no more midweek games, and we have to stop we can't be given presents. And then this is what did he say after that? Something about it being... It implied almost, I couldn't make out what he was saying. Is this, we are in the final stage of the season, or it's still only March. He can't keep doing the thing when he says there's still plenty of games to go and all that. We're into single figures left for league games. We are into March. We're well into March now. And this is the run-in. This is the final bit. I don't know. I couldn't quite make out what he was saying. He's got better English than I have, obviously, but sometimes I think the translation, when he's translating his German thoughts into English, I'm losing something. I can't make out what he means. It's not very clear, but I don't know if he was trying to say there can't be any presence in terms of I'm not going to have Connor Barron just getting a run out in the first team to get him fitter because he deserves to. He needs to get his fitness back. He's going to need to be absolutely brilliant in training. He said something about the training being competitive, I'm sure. So we can't be given any presents like giving away 2-goal leads to Celtic in the dying embers of a game. I didn't understand what he's meaning by that, but it might have been that he can't afford to just let players get a game to get their fitness up because this is the run-in to the end of the season. We're getting towards. This is the nitty-gritty we're down to now, but the big question that everybody's asking, nothing original, what I'm saying here, folks, I know, would it be more criminal not to start the same 11 who started so brilliantly, so explosively, so dominantly last Sunday, than it would be to change that starting 11 simply because we know Martin O'Neill will change his? Both managers have shown their hands. Both managers have shown their hands. The cliche-ometer tells you that's what happened last week. This is the thing about playing teams twice in succession. There's a little bit of chess going on there. I mean, Dujon Sterling, is he going to last 2 games? Is he going to play 2 games in a week? It seems a bit much for Dujon Sterling, but he always seems to play against Celtic, and he's always great against Celtic, so hopefully that's going to be the case. Hopefully Dujon, if not, I'm sure Tav can step in, but that's when folks start thinking, well, Tav can't defend as well as Dujon Sterling. Few people can, though. Do we go to a back 3, which is actually a 5 and all this kind of stuff? And I don't think so. I think it's the subs which could make the difference this week. The substitutions could be done differently. Not just so much who's been substituted as where and when, at what time we substitute. For example, if Chukwueze is going to start tiring again after an hour, I think I heard them saying somewhere that maybe it's because he's trying to cover for Nico Raskin's poor passing. But if Chukwueze is going to start fading after an hour, perhaps, I think was that Jersey, that Alan and Rob maybe said that? I can't remember. If Chukwueze is going to start fading after an hour, perhaps get Diamandi on, as far as I'm concerned, but maybe even at half time, certainly 55 minutes at the most, as opposed to a bit later when he came on last week, and you get him in the middle beside Nico Raskin. Don't have him playing in this kind of number 10 role, which is neither supporting the striker nor being an out-and-out midfield destroyer sitting on top of Callum McGregor. Just get him in there beside Raskin, so you're reproducing the same effects, hopefully, as Chukwueze beside Raskin. We hope Ryan Nadiri can last the whole game this week, and if not, get Majowski on for Ryan Nadiri. It was Diamandi come on for Nadiri last week. Get Majowski on from, so we've got a twin striker, we've got a partner continuing to play up front with Chermiti, because that's when he scores the goals. It's not just he's a big game player, it's like in big games, that's when we play with 2 strikers. It seems to be, perhaps not at Parkhead, but that way we can perhaps get a hat-trick in both halves from Chermiti this week. Just keep him playing with a striker. He was still on an out ball, because he's so tall, etc. We could hit him with long balls, and we needed an out ball as the second half wore on last week, when we're just clearing more lines, getting more and more desperate, but it wasn't sticking, and I think we've just attack is our best form of defence. You can have, as I say, Gassama could maybe come in for Skov Olsen. I'm fine with that because of the gas, his explosion. I can get a joke out of that, I'm sure I can. But Bajrami also has to be a kind of wide option at least as a substitute. I don't know what's happened to him in the last few games, but I think Bajrami looked. It made the difference when he came on against Livingston. It's not the last few games. He just didn't come on last week. And what the hell's happened to Antman? He hasn't featured in the last couple of squads. Just at the point he seemed to be getting a kind of reboot. He came on against Porto, came on against Hibs, he scored against Kilmarnock, he did well against Queen's Park. That's not really proven much, but he's getting a run out. He looked like he had his appetite back, his belief back. So I'm assuming he's maybe injured. I can't see he's been dropped altogether, but. So I'm basically, if as far as possible, I'm going to go with the same starting 11 as last week. Or is it criminal to start in the same formation it took Martin O'Neill just 45 minutes to figure out last Sunday, and he's had a week to prepare for that? I think we have to go with doing plan A better, so to speak. That doomed phrase, but the same starting 11, if all are fit, the same 4-2-2-2/4-4-2 formation as last Sunday. Danny Röhl kept talking up in that presser yesterday. He kept talking up that first 50 minutes last Sunday. So you think he's been wanting to reproduce that first 50 minutes as far as possible, or does he just want Martin O'Neill to think that's what he's going to do on the mind games? The mind games is a minefield. There's talk, I say, of going 3 or 5 at the back in all the various Rangers pods this week, which is it's a 3-4-3 on paper, but it actually becomes a 5-2-3 when your 2 fullbacks come back to defend around 3 centre halves, maybe getting Nasser Giga in there because John Souttar struggled last week, or maybe if, as I say, if Dujon Sterling can't play this week, Tav's not good enough defensively to have him in a back 4. So that lets you have a back 5 when it needs to be, which makes a 5-2-3, which isn't actually a 5-2-3 because 2 of the 5-4-1. Basically, I just think this allows Callum McGregor too much room. 4-2-3-1. Perhaps the 10 can squash McGregor, but it isolates Chermiti again. Nah, I'm going to go 4-2-2-2 in the same 11 as last week. So that's Jack Butland in goals, and he'll be needed when it gets to the penalty shootout. Dujon Sterling at right back, the sublime 2 Romans at left back. You have John Souttar and Big Emi Fernandez as your centre halves. Chukwueze and Raskin as your sitting 2. In front of them, it's Skov Olsen and Mikey Moore. In front of them, it's Ryan Nadiri and Youssef Chermiti. My score prediction: 2-0 to someone. 2-0 to someone. Last week I was saying it's going to be 2-1 to someone. This week I'm saying it's 2-0 to someone, and it ended up 2 each last week, so maybe that's pointing towards the same thing. I can't get a handle on it at all, really. I can't get any kind of gut feeling about this game, but I see one side winning 2-0. For example, we do the 4-2-2-2 better than we did it last week, so it lasts for 90 minutes. But Celtic know how to cope with it, and they have Hatate on from the start of this week, so we don't get to blow them away early doors, but eventually kind of more wear them down. There's a goal in the 40th minute or something, and we get the second and 75th. That's maybe the ideal situation. The ideal situation is we blow Celtic out their socks by making a wee change somewhere, or they get a couple of early red cards, the conspiracy, etc. I don't know, but realistically, I think maybe a 2-0, because Celtic are simultaneously prepped for it. But maybe that could mean, of course, that we keep hammering away at it, but we can't get anywhere, and Celtic know what they're doing this time, and it just leads to them doing the 2-0 to us. Goal in the 40th minute, goal in the 75th minute, and that's it. Who knows, but it's more likely, because it's a cup game, because somebody must win, it's going to be more foot to the pedal stuff, so ultimately, instinctively, it's 2 each again, and we're going to win on penalties. 2 each again, and we're going to win the game on penalties. Jack Butland making the difference. That's me. 2 each. I don't know if it's 2 each after 90 minutes, or 1 each after 90 minutes, then 2 each. Probably 1 each after 90 minutes, 2 each after extra time, and it's Rangers going through on penalties. 3-0 on penalties. Celtic will miss all their penalties. I'll go through 3-0 on penalties. This pod, folks, is a mere addition, a mere addendum, believe it or not. It was supposed to be much smaller to the pod I did on, because nach dem Spiel ist vor dem Spiel, so, and vor dem Spiel ist nach dem Spiel. Last week's game, this week's game. I think it is the turning point of the season. It really is. What a difference this match is going to make, not just to the season, but as a consequence, that the feeling behind Danny Röhl for the rest of the season, and perhaps going into the pre-season, if he's still at the club. Somebody might come in from England. I think he definitely doesn't get the knee-jerk stuff, Danny Röhl. He understands it as a concept, why it's happening, how it's happening. It's going to happen so often, but there's definitely moments where it's clearly upset him that we don't realise how bad we've been and how good a job he's doing. He keeps talking about coming back from 13 points off the top to getting to within 2 points off the top. He doesn't realise that we've heard that once too often now. And I can't blame him. Because we do need patience. We do need to have the same manager. But I think he's probably attracting attention already. If somebody comes in from down south or back in his homeland, back in the old Heimat, he might just go, Danny Röhl. But he needs to win something. If he could win something this season, or just beat Celtic. Don't get a down off Celtic. Don't get put out 2, if not eventually by the time we go to Parkhead, 3 competitions this season. Get one over them, a solid one, a material one over them tomorrow, and it just changes the perspective on everything and beyond this season as well. So it's absolutely colossal. So I've had to do if I'm being honest with it, I had to do like an hour and 20 minutes to debrief on last week's game, and it's an hour and a half, more than an hour and a half. It's going to be an hour and 40 minutes before I stop doing this pod. But if you're really, really struggling for stuff to listen to or watch, you get a bad case of the insomnia, it will come up at the end of the pod, a wee square. I can never work out where it's going to be either side of my fat head, showing me in a lovely powder blue kind of polo shirt, and behind me there's a Graham Souness flag. It's as if I've been captured by the Graham Souness paramilitaries. If we don't sign Frank Lampard as manager, get rid of Danny Röhl and replace him with Frank Lampard, this guy's going to get disemboweled by a studs up tackle to the gut. So it looks like that. It looks like I'm in a hostage situation. So get on that if you want to hear everything else I've had to say about this double header against Celtic. So Heat 2, the 1995 Michael Mann LA crime saga Heat. A follow-up, a sequel, Heat 2, has been in the works for 31 years and counting now, but recently it's been heating up, pun intended. I think Warner Brothers dropped it. He was wanting 200 million from Warner Brothers, who produced the first Heat film, and he dropped it to 170 million. They pulled out. I think it's United Artists or Universal. Somebody beginning with a U has given them $170 million. The word is, to do Heat 2, and I'm worried about it. Leonardo DiCaprio and Christian Bale have been announced as taking part. It's a prequel and a sequel, Heat 2. It's a prolepsis thing going on there. You get life before the events of Heat and what happens with the surviving characters after Heat. I was told DiCaprio is going to be playing Neil Macaulay, the Robert De Niro character, and Christian Bale is going to be playing Vincent Hanna. Then I thought that doesn't seem, because I think of Christian Bale as the Machinist. This great film he's in, The Machine. I think of him more kind of stern, being more. Maybe he's playing a psychopath in that film, a psychopath in America. What was that film? Was the name of that film? Was a psychopath, but he's in America. I can't remember what it's called. I think he's more likely to be. I think he'd be better suited to the Neil Macaulay role. But then I think about him not playing Bruce Wayne and Batman, quite flamboyant and all that, and a bit cheeky. He is better at being. I don't even know if that's for sure who he's playing. But DiCaprio and Christian Bale are involved. They've announced they've signed on, and principal shooting's supposed to start soon. It's been supposed to start soon for a while. Michael Mann is 81 years old now, and I can't help wanting to see. This is my favourite topic in cinema. It's not even my favourite film, I would say, but it's the one that engages me the most, the one I kind of love the most is Heat. It's the film Heat. I want to put most time into it. It's like Rangers haven't won the European Cup as many times as Real Madrid. So we aren't technically the best team in the world, but it's the one I'm obsessed with, the one I love the most, the one I'm most involved in. So I can't help wanting to see anything that Rangers do this second game against Celtic, this sequel tomorrow, but I'm worried about the legacy. I'm worried that Heat 2 might ruin the legacy of what will now be called a franchise, but not just by being a bad second version, but by exposing something wrong at the core of the original, which I've never really wanted to acknowledge, though I know about it. It's a remake I don't want. Rangers Celtic, second week in a row, Old Firm game at Ibrox, second Sunday lunchtime in a trot. A remake I don't want as much as I absolutely want and need it if it goes right. Heat is all about two sides of the same coin. The cops and robbers, not necessarily goodies and baddies. The two sides of the same coin. The two protagonists who seem like heroes or anti-heroes only because they've got mutual admiration for each other, but they can only kind of seem like heroes because there's an ongoing exemplar throughout the course of the film, throughout the course of the story, of the kind of criminal that even criminals hate, and that's Waingro. Heat 2 has I've read Heat 2, the book. It's a terrible book. That my heart sank. I couldn't wait to read it, but my heart sank when I read it. It's an awful book. It's Pulp Fiction, and of course Mario Puzo's The Godfather was Pulp Fiction. It was turned into a classic of cinema. It's a completely different medium, so it doesn't mean to say it's going to be. But Michael Mann helped write Godfather. The Heat 2, Michael Mann helped write Heat 2. And I wonder if it means the film's going to be. It's basically a blueprint for the script of Heat 2 is the novel, and it has a far worse version of Waingro. And Tom Paulin, who's a moderate unionist, a fantastic poet and a critic, a scholar all round, Tom Pollan, who's probably nearly the same age as Michael Mann, I would imagine. I remember him being on Newsnight Review or Late Review. It's just 31 years ago, before I'd seen Heat, days, maybe the night before I saw Heat. I'm sure I saw Heat on a Friday, and it used to be a Thursday night. This programme was on BBC Two. And Tom Pollan, the other two critics were praising Heat 2. Heat, praising Heat, the original. And there was Tom Pollan. He talked about the scene where Waingro had killed a sex worker, and the way her body was found. He said it's just downright pornographic, and it was pornographic. And it's pornographic in more than just the sense of seeing female flesh kind of cheapened. A man was exploiting that female flesh, because the Vincent Hanna character, played by Al Pacino in the first Heat film, he finds that he goes along, he's called away from his night out with his workmates and their wives at a swanky nightclub to go back onto the streets, because it's robbery homicide department, and this woman's been found, she's been killed, and they think it's a serial killer, and that serial killer is Waingro. And he goes down, and her mum, the woman's mum, comes along to see her daughter's body. She's heard the news, and he don't want to see her like this, so he grabs a hold of the woman's mum, and she's black as well. So it's that thing, he's white, but he doesn't care because he walks the streets. And he's like the saviour, he's the white saviour. It's a horrible white saviour. Oh, he's not even managed to save her. But he's stopping the mum from seeing this. The mum's just crying out in anguish, losing her daughter to such a trade, and then to such horrible circumstances. And he's grabbing a hold of her, and it's like, you're like, Al Pacino, Vincent Hanna, thank God. And we do need, in real life, these kind of guys out there doing this kind of job. But in the course of the film, it's like she had to go through that, get treated, that female character had to get literally treated like trash. So we could all feel that we could all invest properly in the heroism of Al Pacino's role in this film. This is because of Waingro. In Heat 2, the Waingro character, the guy who, it's horrific, the stuff. So the Vincent Hanna character, whoever he's going to be played by in Heat 2, is Adam Driver, he's in it, and the other, can go along to a woman that's been put in a coma, a young lass who's been put in a coma, and he can go and visit her in hospital and sit by her side and just promise her that he's going to get revenge. He's going to get the guy that did this, and blah blah blah. It's horrible, and I think that this is what bothers me about what might happen in Heat 2. And Tom Pollan is a moderate unionist, Protestant, born in Leeds, raised in Belfast by his Belfast-born dad, and he eventually became convinced there should be a united Ireland and stuff like that. As somebody who's treading in both sides of the divide and what have you, but I always remember him talking about that scene in Heat 2. Every time I'm reading his work, fantastic critic. It's the need for women to suffer in order that sociopaths can be seen as heroic in comparison to psychopaths. We can't let Martin O'Neill bring out the antisocial in us. The sociopathic Martin O'Neill can't be allowed to bring out the antisocial in us, the Rangers supports. I need Heat 2 to be a great film in as desperate a manner as I need Martin O'Neill to be seen off the premises, knowing that Celtic have been eliminated from a trophy. It's been a material hit on Celtic in Martin O'Neill's last ever trip, surely, as a manager to Ibrox. He's 74 years old. Surely it's the last time we're going to be seeing him managing Celtic, at least at Ibrox, in the same way that Michael Mann is 81 years old. This is surely going to be the second and last in the series of Heat films under the direction of Michael Mann. Surely, it's certainly the last of the March 2026 Old Firm games at Ibrox under the management of Martin O'Neill for Celtic. We've got two managers tomorrow, our head coaches who've won the European Cup / Champions League. As a player, Martin O'Neill, and as a part of the coaching staff of Hansi Flick. Martin O'Neill won it with Nottingham Forest in 1980 at the Bernabeu. Nottingham Forest, his mate John Robertson scoring the only goal of the game against Hamburg, against Hayersfall. And then you had a Bundesliga club as well, Bayern München, winning the Champions League in 2020, beating PSG in the Stadium of Light at Benfica's ground there. So that's and Danny Röhl was on the staff, the coaching staff that time. So it's quite a big thing. But I'm hoping this second version, this sequel with the old director in one of the technical areas, it's going to be the last time we ever see him, and I hope it ends badly for him. A guy told me one time, do not let yourself get attached to anything you're not willing to walk out on in 30 seconds flat when you feel that heat coming around the corner. Well, at Rangers, we don't do walking away, and we do barbecues and ball games. Get Celtic beat, get away and grow oft. See, we can all get back to our regular type lives. Talk to you after the game tomorrow, troops.